This whole topic today that we're here to talk about was a surprise announcement made by Apple on May 10th. So a day after my birthday, they wanted to spring this up on us. And they have announced that the iPod Touch will be available while supplies last, which means the end of the iPod. 20 years, basically, of the iPod has come to an end, and we wanted to read the statement, but also give our iPod memories and reflect on how important the iPod was to not only to Apple, but the music industry. So this is directly from Apple's newsroom website, so you can go read the whole thing. I'm only going to do 2 paragraphs, but they said, since the introduction over 20 years ago, iPod has captivated users all over the world who love the ability to take their music with them on the go. Today, the experience of taking one's music library out into the world has been integrated across Apple's product line from iPhone, Apple Watch, iPad, Mac, along with access to 90 million songs and over 30,000 playlists available via Apple Music. And the quote, "Music has always been a part of our core at Apple, and bringing hundreds of millions of users in the way iPod did impacted more than just the music industry. It also redefined how music was discovered, listened to, and shared. Today, the spirit of the iPod lives on. We've integrated an incredible music experience across all of our products, from iPhone, Apple Watch, HomePod Mini, across Mac, iPad, Apple TV, and Apple Music delivers the industry-leading sound quality with the support of spatial audio. There's no better way to enjoy, discover, and experience music." And then they have a couple pictures of the iPod of each date they were released in there. It's not all of them, but it's the significant ones, including the first iPod, which was on October 23rd of 2001, which was the announced date for that. And then the iPod Mini, which I didn't have, but that was introduced on February 20th, 2004. Then the iPod Nano 2nd Gen, which I definitely had. And then they had the thinner design in 2006. The first iPod Touch, September 5th, 2007. That was the same year the iPhone was released. Mm-hmm. The iPod Nano 7th Gen, that's the one where they had the touch feature built on there with a display. That was in September 12th, 2012. The Shuffle from July 15th of 2015. And then finally, the final one that was introduced, the iPod Touch 7th Gen, introduced May 28th of 2019, where they added the Fusion chip in there, which would be the last updated iPod.
Yep. And you know, the big thing was when they came out with that last one you mentioned, it had a camera in it, and so it had everything the phone had except the phone. Mm-hmm. So, you know, people would look at it and say, okay, well, why do I want to buy this instead of the phone? Mm-hmm. And, you know, basically it was, if you were buying this for, you know, one of your kids where you want them to be able to listen to music, but you don't want them to be, to have the phone.
Right.
This would be it. You could do texting, you could FaceTime, everything the phone did except the phone.
Yeah, and that I think is still a valuable piece today. I think that's still a great product to carry around with them in their pocket. I can tell you that would have been my first one, but now you're in a world now where you just gotta be connected all the time now. You know, at first I looked at that as, well, that's great for a beginner before he gets a phone, and now it's like, well, you know, you might as well get the phone because the phone only costs you like $400 now. So it's like for $200, you might as well get the whole thing on there. But you have an iPod on you. I don't have one. Which one do you have? Oh, that's not a good symbol on there, though.
Well, it isn't. But I just, now this one here, it's 60 gig. And there's a story behind this.
Okay.
And that is, my daughter wanted an iPod. And this was really my first introduction to the Apple products. So I went to, do you remember Circuit City?
Of course.
Well, Circuit City had Apple products. And there was no Apple store in my area. So I went to Circuit City. And the guy showed me the iPod. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know? So I bought it. Came home. I said, well, I got to test it out, right? So I loaded some songs on, and then one of the choices was games. And I'm like, oh, what kind of game? So I hit it, and then there was this game where it would
worm game?
To play a song. No, it'd start to play a song, and it would give you 4 titles.
Yeah.
And then, after like 2 songs, I went, oh, there are the songs I just loaded on, So I thought, well, how cool is that? So I said, I got to go back and get me one now, because my daughter wanted one. And this is the one that now this one, though, has the color screen on it. Hers was not a color screen.
Yeah, that's like the iPod Photo, or I believe.
Yeah, right. And
I think that's the one that you have.
Yep. I had a lot of fun with it. And you could, I just plugged it in because I thought, it'd be neat to show it, but it says do not disconnect, so it's got to be loading something from my computer.
I'm surprised that Apple, they still support it. That they still allow it to work, basically.
Well, you had to have iTunes, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Which doesn't exist anymore, technically.
Yes. So you had iTunes, you had to back it up, or you didn't have to, but you could back it up to your computer by plugging it into your computer, and it would make a backup. Now, again, this is when a lot of people were like, oh, why do I need to do a backup of anything, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And so this was really where Apple first started saying, okay, you need to back up your iPods to save your music, and then back up your computers as well as a fail-safe. iTunes, you could buy a song for 99 cents. And that really kicked off the whole music industry change. Mm-hmm. So it was quite an experience, because you're like, well, somebody like myself, I used to buy a lot of music. And I'm thinking, well, $1.29. Hell, I paid more than that for 45, in the old days, So it was pretty cheap, and you could pick and choose. You didn't have to buy an entire album. Mm-hmm. So changed.
It was just circumstance that the iTunes store and iPod just they came out at the right time, just time.
Meshed everything together,
Yep. I also had a 4th generation. That was my very first one, and my memory of that was I was in college, and I saw that, and I was just like amazed of I hadn't even really heard of an iPod yet. I may have heard of it, but when you see people in New York wearing the white plugs, and there's a majority of people having that, well, it piques your interest of why that is. And I got the 4th gen iPod. My significance of that iPod is within a year, I cracked the screen on it. Mm-hmm. And the closest Apple store in New Jersey at the time was the Edison Menlo Park Mall. So I went there with my iPod cracked to find out what the options are, and as everyone knows, the iPod is not repairable. So they basically charged me for 2/3 of the price to get it fixed, which is getting a whole new one, which my dad thought was ridiculous. So we went to TechServe in New York, who is willing to do third-party repairs, and they did fix the display. And it worked perfectly fine when I did that. And then not too long after that, I ended up getting my first Nano. The first week that Nano came out, I bought it because I love the thinness. And then I bought like a nice leather case for it so it would just hang. It was just so light. And it was the first time they were using a flash-based, I think it was flash-based storage. Yeah. I think that was the first one that used it. And within 2 weeks, I bent it because I was playing pool. I was playing pool at the school. Yep, that rhymes, everybody. I'm going to take a Zevia just for that one, everybody. Make sure Zevia, not a sponsor this week, but... And I took it to the Apple store. It's bent. It's very clearly bent. They gave me a one-time exception, and they swapped it out.
Oh, look at that. There you go. You know, what's funny is when this came out, it was... I mean, if you think about what Steve did at this point, everybody had a Discman or a cassette player, and he they sort of combined all of these things together in an electronic form, and that's when Apple really was taking things and saying, all right, how can we make this better? You know, and that's what they really did. The Discman was nice, but you know, you still had to. I mean, how many discs could you really carry around with you? You know, so here you have 60 gigabytes of storage on these things that started out, and 60 gigabytes, you fit a lot of music on there. You know, and and create whatever playlist you want, that kind of stuff. All the things that you can do today, but you also 20 years ago you did it. So the only difference is you the music here you had to buy. You had to own it, but you could have taken your discs that you had at home, loaded them into your iTunes library. So it's not like you had to buy them again, and then load them onto your iPod.
And a lot of people, I don't think Apple ever made this very clear that if you like go get a new computer, you can't move the music over from the iPod into the old computer. It's syncing from the library. And that was a concept that I don't think Apple ever really got across very well, which is why we don't sync anymore to begin with.
Yeah.
But, you know, the idea of trying to sync your stuff was, like, at the time, was like a brilliant idea, and that it was pretty easy. But then when you had to go to another computer and you wanted a song from that person and you plugged in your iPod and then you didn't read what you wrote, what it said, and you erased your iPod and put the one song on there. You're like, that how many times did people come to the Apple Store about that? That happened all the time.
Well, and then you had the whole Napster thing, right? And you know, basically you were, well, I don't say stealing, but you were copying music without authority.
And that's stealing.
Yeah, okay, that's stealing. All right. But Apple is always very big on copyright rules and regs. That's why a lot of times they wouldn't allow. They had the DRM on it, remember? Well, on all the music. And that's why, because they felt that this was intellectual property that was owned by the artist, and the artist had to get paid.
Right.
And even to this day, they still do that. So,
yeah, I will. To piggyback off a little bit about your the iPod, one of the things I thought was really amazing is when they put the video feature on there, because now I'm traveling on a plane or on a bus, and now I can watch full length movies on an iPod. In 2005, 2006.
Yep.
That was pretty crazy. And not to mention the size just grew because now they have so much more room to put on there. So I think I got like a 40 or 30 gig model. I think it was a 30 gig model because that was like $299, $300, you know, back then. You know, it's still a lot of money for it, but it was terrific. And that was my last one before the iPhone, but yeah, I love that iPod video. I did sell it. Eventually, it sucks I didn't keep one of them. You were smart enough to keep at least one of them. Yeah. Because now, like, trying to buy one, hopefully that it's still in good condition. Hopefully it still works. You know, that's kind of the key. And where I worked at my other job before I got these, I worked at as a video editor somewhere, and their music system that, like, if you call, you know how you call and they tell you to put you on hold and you have the music playing?
Yeah.
They used a first-gen iPod into the phone system, and it loops over and over music. That's what they used, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if they unplug that thing, it will not work because they haven't unplugged it. But I thought that was very interesting. What other iPods did you own besides that one? Or is that the only one you had?
It's the only one I had.
Wow.
And because I went from that right to the phone. But I did purchase other ones as gifts. The third generation one, the red one, a blue one.
I bought my wife an iPodTouch, you know, one time because she thought she would use it for, like, and this is while she had an iPhone. So I think she was just trying to like she wanted to do something else around the house and not carry the phone around with her. I think she was trying to have music play in her car, but the iPhone didn't have to be connected to it.
Right.
So that was, I think, her goal. But I think it came to a point like in 2002, so we had the iPod here in 2001 when it was introduced. And here we are in 2007. They have now they announced the widescreen iPod, which ended up being the iPhone. And who would have thought that Apple killed its own product with another product? I mean, how often does that happen where they have a product that's a humongous hit, right? It destroyed every other MP3. It destroyed it changed the music industry.
Even the Zoom.
Right. So
Microsoft Zoom.
Everyone's favorite product, the Microsoft Zoom. And my God, Windows was so late to the game on that. You talk about when Windows was so. You talk about the worst years of Windows. 03 to like maybe 2010 to 12 was probably some of the worst years for them. They were so behind on everything.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, they went to Vista to 7, and then finally 10. Thank God, like 10 worked out for them. But they relied on 10 for so long. How many years has 10 been out?
Yeah.
But they were just so behind on the times. And the point I was trying to make was when they came out with the iPhone, the one thing that always irritated me about that was how does my cell phone not able to do what the iPod does?
Yeah.
And here's that magical connection where they all work together, where now you could sync and talk. Now you got two items in your pocket. Now you're down to one.
Yep.
And that for me was a big deal. That smartphones like Blackberries and all that. I don't know if they really didn't have the software capabilities to do the music. It wasn't easy. Even if you could do it, it wasn't that easy to do it. And they made it easy to do.
Yeah. Yep. And now, like, a lot of you mentioned two items you're carrying out. How many people for years carried two phones, one for business, one for personal? Mm-hmm. Now you don't need to do that anymore. You have two SIMs in there, and you got one device, which that's got to be very handy for a business,
Yeah. I mean, they discontinued the original iPod was discontinued in 2000, I believe 14 was when they stopped manufacturing them. Yep. That's when they started doing that. And then, of course, the Nano came, then the Shuffle came right after that. And then it was the end of, and then we just had this announcement today where the Touch was no longer being updated. It's got an A10 Fusion chip in there, which is a iPhone 7 chip. So I don't expect too many updates to be supported on that anymore. Even if you bought one now, you're looking at maybe 3 years tops before that thing will not be supported by a lot of apps anymore.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
So, like right now, would you say it's a market to go buy one of these iPods? Because it's going to be discontinued.
I kind of look at this as almost like if they're going to discontinue, like Ford, when they discontinued the Thunderbird, and they came out with it, like a limited edition. It's kind of like buy them while you last, because, and people will just kind of keep them as like, oh, look what I got. I have the last issued whatever.
To me, the Touch is not that big of a deal because it's just like an iPhone. But if they still have the iPod Classic out for some reason, and that was the last one they did, I think they would be flying off the shelves.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore. I don't think the Touch is as big of a deal.
Yeah, like if they did, like you said, a classic like this, but with a newer chip and a bit larger storage, people would buy it just for the nostalgia of it.
If you think about it, 20 years of this tech, do you feel like that's a long time or a short time compared to? Because I think that's quite short. If you think about it from a tech perspective, I mean, really, the product's dead because the MP3 player is dead. There is no MP3 player. It was just put into another product. You know, like the camcorder still exists. Everyone can still go buy camcorders or DSLRs. You know, there's still a camcorder. There's still a video recorder. There is literally no MP3 anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and now, on top of it now, see, I was so upset, I banged my desk, I almost destroyed my GoPro, which is a camcorder. So, but there is no MP3 anymore. And I guess you could say that iPhone is technically that, but it's not the main focus point.
Well, you know, it's hard to say with the iPhone, what is there one function of the iPhone that is its focus. I know it's called the iPhone, but really I've said for years that it's probably misnamed because the phone...
Oh, I don't think it's misnamed at all. It's called the correct thing because the number one reason why you have that is to make calls, because if you don't have that in your pocket, it's an iPod Touch.
Not today's generation. Right. They do more texting and FaceTime than...
but I consider Snapchatting a call. I still consider that a call.
All right.
Or if they're like doing audio texts, I mean, they're still using cell phone feed. Not to mention, if they're using the data specifically, not Wi-Fi, then they're definitely doing some kind of a cell phone. You can't do that on the Touch.
Right. But
my point, going back to my point, is like, do you think? I know that the iPhones. To me, the primary reason of having an iPhone is to have a data signal everywhere. You know, that's the only, that's the main reason, that's just why plus the name iPhone will never go away. That is just ingrained into our, world now. That'll never change. I can never imagine Apple ever changing that name, to that.
Yeah. I'd have to say the iPod Touch is kind of morphed into the iPhone,
right?
And there was really no place for the iPod Touch to go except adding the phone feature, in which case it's a phone.
Right.
So I don't see anywhere.
All you could do. Yeah, I mean, unless the only thing I could think of that Apple could have done is gone down, like, upgrading the cameras, but maybe putting bigger cameras in there just to make it useful as a video camera more so than a iPod Touch. I think that would have been interesting, because I remember one of the things I always talked about that Apple, I think, should do is they need to get into the camera business, because I think with their the footage I'm shooting, like the way that the iPhone can process light, and I could get my blue blurry background, plus still have a good light on my subject. And that's software doing that. That's not the lens doing that. And for some reason, DSLRs and mirrorless cameras just can't do that. They just can't. You need a light on your, to adjust for that. That's the difference that I think Apple has. So taking the Touch and maybe maybe making the body bigger, putting like a bigger lens on it I wouldn't have called it an iPod Touch anymore. It's not that anymore.
You call it an iCamera. iCam. Yeah.
Well, I don't think they're going to call it Apple. They're not going to use the word I anymore.
Oh, okay. Use that
forever.
So an Apple Cam.
But I think that would have been really like the next generation of that product, but include all that stuff. Do the Wi-Fi, do the iPod, include all those things in there, but have that one special thing that it could do, and you can still use the same form factor and everything.
Yeah,
I think that would have been pretty cool. But I get why it's ending. It's not surprising. It really wasn't.
Yeah, I would agree. It's but it's listen, it's had 20 years. I mean, 20 years. That's for me in technology. I think that's a long time. I mean, it had upgrades, but its lifespan certainly was significant. And its growth, like I said, over the years, it just sort of morphed into the iPhone. That was the basis for which the iPhone was built on. Mm-hmm. And then it just grew from there.
What would you say is the worst iPod they made?
Oh man, I don't know.
Now remember, we have different nanos. We have there's a couple of unique ones I'd like to talk about. First off, the first one I ever thought was the third gen with the silver clip.
Yeah,
and there was no touch, and there was no touch panels.
That was
the chiclet, yeah. So I remember I was at school at the time, and I was working at Apple, and that announcement came out like at a random day, and I was like, there are no buttons on that, and everything is controlled via voice or the controls.
Yeah, or the buttons on the earphones.
Yes. I did not see that being like that was gone after a year, and they went back to like the almost the 2 design. I thought it was cool with the thumbstick around your neck. What was cool about that too? You could put files on that.
Yeah, they
let you do that.
Yeah,
even on the iPod. That's a hidden feature people don't realize. That was a hard drive.
Yeah, the thing with the chiclet that I think was one of the people hated the most was they freaking lost them all the time.
Well, they're so small,
you know.
I thought the clip itself was really good.
Yeah,
I just think again, not being able to physically change anything, was just a bad idea.
Yeah, yep.
You know, well, is there any other one you can think of that was the worst?
No, I think other than that, that silver one that was about the length of your thumb.
Right, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, those two I think for me were they're
the same. We're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure. Like I just told you the same thing I was just talking about.
So.
I thought the Nano first gen was very thin. I thought that one was a little tough. It was too breakable. And then they came out with that new one. But we have to talk about one of the best ones, the 6th gen iPod Nano, because that led to what product, you think? Which one was the 6th gen iPod Nano? The watch.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So they went. So they went from. Remember, originally it was the 5th gen had that camera built in. Remember, it was a Nano. It had a camera and a microphone, so you could record 1080p in there. I think you were able to record video, and then they switched to this whole new design, the 6th gen, which basically had the first like touchscreen version of the Nano, but you could hook up, like, people were making watch bands for it.
Yes.
Because you had the ability to have the clock as your screensaver.
Yes.
The only downside is you have to press the button to get it to do it, but that was still, like, that was the Apple Watch before the watch.
I was going to say, it's kind of like the precursor to the watch.
Yes. I thought that was a terrific design that really changed the game, I thought, because then it just opened the idea of what an iPod could do, because now you're talking about having that watch feature almost.
Yeah. Well, if you think about what the watch does today, it has pretty much all of those same features that your iPod Touch does.
Yeah. So I just think it's so interesting how, they switched to a whole different design, the last design, which was the touchscreen one, but they didn't stick with that design. And I don't know if that was Apple's way of starting to go to the watch, maybe based on that experience, and they just got rid of it. Because that was in 2010. So that's a whole, like, think of how much time that was. That was about 5 years, I think, before. How long? It was like 5 years later. That's when the watch came out.
Yeah, well, maybe, they took that and tried to really develop it,
I always had a shuffle, too. I always liked having, like, a little shuffle around once. Like, they were cheap, so it was good to have those. But I thought the Nano was the best of both worlds, where you could have the thinness and all that. But if you wanted to watch a video, you had to get the iPod Classic, and then eventually the Touch. But the Touch was amazing. Think about the iPod Touch. People couldn't afford an iPhone. Here's the iPod Touch that came out.
Yep. Yeah. And I remember I sold a lot of them, and
they used to come bundled. Remember, we used to give them away as like part of like the package deal.
Oh, back to school, you mean?
Back to school, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
yeah. And I mean, like I said, people would buy them for gifts for, their kids or whatever, and they would have everything but the phone. So it was, kind of satisfying to use.
I remember the first one didn't have a camera, which was a little disappointing, but I think the
subsequent versions did, yeah.
What a great legacy the iPod has left us. I hope you like the screen page. You'll see what I'm going to send you the screenshot of what our logo is going to look like. But I want to thank Apple. You created one of the best products in the world. Thank you for that. It changed the music industry. It changed my life having those songs and videos in my pocket all the time. And you made something even better from just that. Think of that click wheel, what it led to what we have now with multi-touch. So, thank you, iPod. We appreciate everybody. We hope you guys are enjoying. We just put up our iMessage video on screen sharing. Please take a look at that. All of our YouTube content. We are getting close to that 1,000 subscribers, folks. But we are excited and we are ready to give you more great content. So thank you for joining us here on the Think Different podcast. And I love every single one of you.
See you later.